I'm Anurag. I'm here from GoFundMe, the world's largest fundraising platform. Show of hands, how many of you have heard of GoFundMe before? Amazing. Don't have to go too much into detail. I want to thank the Strategy Institute for inviting me. It's always great to be in Toronto. Also, a great opportunity to wear a suit, which I never do, so really appreciate that. Oh, that picture is from Patagonia in Argentina, one of the few times I get to see anything cold. So I really enjoy looking at a glacier. I've never seen one before. So that's in Argentina. No, it's not AI. It's very much a real photo. Very cool. So we'll go through a short agenda today. We'll talk about the recent rise of AI. I'm sure all of you use AI tools already at your workplaces and even at home. Then we'll go into how GoFundMe uses AI to create some empathetic experiences for our customers. Finally, we'll talk about some an AI integration framework that makes sense for all of you, and we'll just wrap it all up with key takeaways. Let's start with the recent rise of AI. November 2022 is when ChatGPT came out, and that's the real commercial birth of AI, right? All of us were introduced to AI for the first time in November 2022. There are some developers working on LLMs in the back end, et cetera, but it became mainstream almost exactly 3 years ago. And it's so mainstream now that, for example, my mom uses it for her speeches at work, and my dad uses it for manipulating images to create these cool memes. So there's so many use cases for ChatGPT, but I'm willing to bet that everybody here uses at least one of these tools, either in your personal or professional life. I'd be surprised if there's nobody in this room, even one person in this room, who doesn't recognize one of these logos or actually uses them in their personal or work lives. So what does that mean? The rise has been so prolific that just in the first half of 2025 in the US, there were 1.2 million AI-related jobs. I'm willing to bet there are many people here who are leaders from companies that have AI-related jobs in your own fields. And if you go to GoFundMe's career site, you'll also see AI jobs, right? And companies that invested heavily in building out this AI backbone have seen prolific rise in their stock prices. Think about Google, think about Microsoft, think about OpenAI. They've all been highly successful. Now, some might argue it's a bubble, maybe not, we don't know. I'm not here to speculate, but the numbers don't lie, right? You see the big rise in their stock prices and their revenue. The reality is there are very few real experts in AI. What do I mean by that? Let's say that 3 years ago, November 2022, you picked up an instrument you've never played before, a guitar, a piano, whatever, right? Let's say you spend 8 hours a day every week practicing it. I'm sure you'd be pretty good at it, but would I call you an expert, a maestro? I don't think so, right? It's hard for us to be an expert in something that we've only been exposed to 3 years ago, right? There are no real experts. There are some people who know it better than others, but the reality is we're all kind of figuring it out as we go. So it's all up to us to leverage this technology to build customer experiences that make sense using this new technology. It's there. There are real use cases. There are things that it's good for and things that it's not so good for. And it's up to us to figure out how to use it and where. So that brings me to how, for example, GoFundMe uses AI. So GoFundMe's mission is help people help each other. There are people who come to our site to raise money for happy use cases. Hey, I want to go on my honeymoon. My kid's soccer team needs to go on a field trip, so we need to raise money for that. But we also have sad cases and personal crises, like, hey, my parents need support to pay for their old age home, or my grandma passed away and I need money for the memorial. Those are all, there's a full spectrum of emotions that are on display on GoFundMe. So GoFundMe, we've raised so far, we've been around for 15 years, and we've raised $40 billion plus dollars for both people and charities. That is 56 billion Canadian dollars for our friends in Canada here. I did the math today, so accurate as of right now. So we raise money for people across the board, but also we help charities maximize their giving. You can imagine that your friend or your partner or your coworker has a need, and there's a personal connection to raise money for that, right? So, hey, my brother broke his arm, or his dog needs to go to the vet, or his kid needs to go to soccer practice. I will give money because it's my brother and not because of the reason per se. But charities are more cause-driven, right? They're specific NPOs or nonprofit organizations that care about specific things. So it's a different problem, which we're also trying to solve through intelligent giving. So some stats as of today, these stats are averages for this year. We have 100 million plus visitors on our site, which leads to about 2 donations per second across our consumer side and as well as our NPO side. And we have received, I chose the number 150 because there's always a hot debate about how many countries actually exist. But we have received donations from over 150 countries. We actually operate and allow fundraising in 20 countries, and proud to say that we're one of the largest fundraising platforms in Canada as well. So let's go to a specific use case for how we leveraged AI within GoFundMe. You've probably heard a lot of speakers today talk about AI productivity, right? There are ways you can make your staff more productive. You're probably much more productive yourselves because you're using the likes of ChatGPT to improve your emails, et cetera. But I want to talk about a specific use case where we think about our customer and how we can improve their experience using AI. So imagine you're going through a personal crisis of some sort, right? You broke your arm. I guess it's not as meaningful in Canada because you have universal health care, so let me take a different example. I see somebody clapping there. Maybe perhaps your dog needs to go to the vet, and it's pretty expensive. You need to raise money for that. You're in distress. It's hard for you to think about what is the right story for me to tell in my fundraiser that can solicit the most donations. Your job is to tell your story in a way that appeals to people's emotions and their empathy, and you raise money for your cause, right? So it's really hard to do that when you're in distress yourself. What we noticed was most people, as they started their journey of creating a fundraiser, would drop off when they had to create or write the story. Writing a story is hard. You have to bring in authenticity, you have to be empathetic, and you have to create empathy in other people, and it's hard to do all of those things when you're yourself under some sort of duress. Introducing our AI coach. So we built this AI coach where you'll notice that we introduce this chat-style interface for you, and then you're able to essentially talk to this chatbot, and that'll help you write up the story for you. In this example, where somebody needs to raise money for their vet needs, and it starts asking you questions, and eventually creates the story for you. We've probably already seen this in our personal lives already, right? Like you use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to improve your emails. It's an excellent use case for a large language model that powers AI for us to bring to the forefront of our customer use cases and deliver some value which was previously hard to accomplish through our traditional site. Like if you had to go through the regular steps of creating this thing, there would be a box for you to write a story, and that's so hard for you to do because of all the things I mentioned, right? So in this case, you will notice that we found a use case for our customers, and we delivered some value for them in a way that simplified the journey for them. And when our customers succeed, we succeed, right? It's true for all of you here. So this is one of those use cases. But how successful were we? When we looked at the completion rates of our fundraisers, we saw that only about 40% people completed their fundraising journey. So you add your media. Media is just adding a picture of some sort, and then that's easy, right? You have a picture. Hey, my leg is broken. Here's a picture of that. Hey, here's my kid who needs to go on a field trip, so I need to raise money for my kids. They're adorable. Give me some money. But when it comes to story, we saw a huge drop-off, and if you actually notice that chart, from there, it's pretty flat. Most people who are able to pass that hurdle end up actually finishing their fundraiser, which is phenomenal. So it was pretty clear for us to go and focus on improving that step to improve our completion rates. What did that actually translate to? Over 80% people ended up publishing their fundraiser if they use the AI-assisted story. It really helped a lot of people get through that giant hurdle of writing a story, and it helped us get a lot more people the help that they need, which wouldn't have happened otherwise if they hadn't used this AI story. So again, you will notice that it was a human who looked at this and said, hey, we need to focus on this. Of course, you can probably train an AI thing to look at where your funnel drops off, but we had to tailor-make our solution to be empathetic to our people, our customers, so they can write their story. So using this as an example, I'm now going to go into an AI integration framework. Again, this is not about productivity. I'm not talking about how you can use Gemini to make your slides prettier, which is actually what I did. or using ChatGPT to increase the fluency of your email. I'm talking about how you can tackle specific customer experience use cases with AI. So the AI integration framework, it's going to be rather straightforward. It's just 3 steps. And when you hear it, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. But I just want to drive that point home for you. It's the 3 I's: identify, implement, iterate. Let's start with identify. This one was pretty obvious for us. We track our funnel pretty rigorously, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well, right? If you're a digital business, you're probably tracking how people flow through your funnel, all the way from landing on your site, all the way to whatever metric you're trying to drive, which is some sort of conversion in your case. We identified that as our use case, and more importantly, we realized that it's a use case that can be optimized by AI. Not everything is AI-friendly. AI is not your silver bullet. It has to be a use case which can be helped using our current technology, using LLMs. So writing a story, in fact, is one of the strengths, right? If you're using ChatGPT, you already know that you give it a few bullet points, it writes a beautiful story for you. And we're like, why not leverage that use case? So you need to figure out what is that use case for yourselves, and that's the thing you want to work on. Implement. We needed to go to market quickly. We knew it was a big problem, so we didn't spend months debating what the solution should be. We picked a solution, implemented it, and most importantly, iterated it. The number you saw, 80% plus, was not magical. It didn't happen overnight. It happened because of constant experimentation and testing multiple different variants, multiple different tones, all of these things where real humans sat and partnered with our AI solution and came up with this thing. So the framework for you is pretty simple, right? Think back to your own businesses. There must be a variety of people here who have a variety of different needs. You're all serving different kinds of customers. The solution you're providing to those people are different. So for us, for example, donation value is what we're trying to drive. We're trying to help our customers get the most donation value for their fundraiser. So we picked the solution that helped them tell the story because it's the gap we're trying to bridge. The obvious next question is, should we build or buy, right? There are a variety of tools that exist in the market. Everybody's promising this magical utopia of problem solving. You implement it and it's ready to go. Somebody said you can buy a Ferrari, but at the end of the day, you're not getting a sports car because you don't know how to use it. So my recommendation is pick a solution that makes the most sense for you. Going back to my original point, there are no real experts, right? There are some companies that are also spending a lot of time on specific use cases. So that's actually a great place for us to go and shop and pick one. Imagine you're a marketing agency. Imagine all you do day in and day out is create nice posters for your ads. Would you try to build a software that creates these posters for you, or would you just go and get an Adobe subscription? It's the same problem here, right? Why would you go and build a complex solution if you don't even know if it's going to work? So my recommendation is to start with the buy solution, and over time, if you think you can outpace that solution, sure, go ahead and build it. That's a whole can of worms we'll get to in a bit. So in our case, we picked a solution, a third-party solution, mind you. I'm not going to name which one, but we picked one, we implemented it, and then we saw pretty decent results. We're starting to already see people where closing the gap between, of course, 100% is the golden standard. Nobody ever hits 100%. But we're already seeing a pretty big bump compared to our original flow where there was no AI-assisted story. People had to write their own story. Harsh. It's so hard to write a good story when you're in distress. And then we started fine-tuning and iterating it. We ran multiple A/B tests. We tried multiple different things, new prompts. We changed the tone. We tried a bunch of different things to see which actually drives the most value. We, also, of course, kept the human in the loop. We always gave the option to our customers to make edits. And in fact, also, at the end of the day, once we finished the AI story piece, they could completely reject it and say, hey, this doesn't sound like me. I don't want this. I just want to go with my own solution. We always gave them the opportunity to do that. But what we found was people who use the AI-assisted story incrementally but surely start seeing more and more value. And repeat that action over and over and over again. So at the end of the day, what ended up happening in our case is we were using this third-party solution, and it did a lot of great stuff. But eventually we decided, we're like, hey, look, this third-party solution is great for what it does, but it's not really built for our use case, right? We are in a very specific niche sector. Only nonprofits and few other fundraising players play in this space. So we need to build something that was much more custom. So while we were standing up this third-party tool and fine-tuning that, we started building our own tool in parallel. Now, I'm not recommending that you do the same thing. In fact, for many of you, that won't even make sense. It just made sense for us, so I'm saying that's an option, but it should not be your first option. And the reason I say that is because all of us here are incentivized to go to market quickly. It's impossible for us to build something from scratch and go to market quickly. You can buy a third-party tool. Going back to my Adobe example, you can get an Adobe subscription today and start making your posters for your marketing agency tonight. Imagine if I had to build my own poster-making software. Imagine I had to reinvent Canva from scratch. It's months or years worth of work before I can have anything that can go to market. So in our case, we found that eventually building something made sense, but I'm not saying that that's always the answer for you. As we're going through this, I also want to talk about your primary metric. In our case, fundraiser success is what we care about. We care about our individual customers as well as our nonprofits raise the most amount of money for what they need it for, right? And we measure that value through donation value. If a nonprofit organization raises the most amount of money it can, we are successful. We are incentivized to help our nonprofit customers and our individual users to raise as much money as possible to, again, to support the cause that they care about. So we always had our eyes on the primary metric because if you don't even finish your fundraiser, how are you going to raise any money? How are you going to get your first dollar to fund the thing that deeply matters to you? And that's the thing we need to solve. We need to make our customers successful, and that in turn makes us successful. There are already multiple teams, I'm sure, within all of your companies, right? Product, marketing, those are the obvious ones, but there's probably a brand team, there's a support team. I also have a bubble called AI efficiency, which just means you're using AI tools in conjunction with your existing tools to speed up the stuff that you're already doing. You're using Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot, I think, the Microsoft version. You're using all of these things to speed up how you're doing work, and you're supercharging your people. That's why I have a separate bubble here called AI plus CX, which is, so far we've looked at internal efficiency, but it's time for us to look outward and see how we can improve customer experiences using AI. And again, I want to repeat my point. AI is not the silver bullet. It's not going to solve all of our problems. There are specific situations where an AI solution can be deployed to deliver value, and it's up to us to find out where that makes sense. Now, you might be wondering, well, cool, the framework exists, and sure, you want to get started, let's go shop for a third-party solution, but how do we make this part of our culture? How do we look to the future, right? So, again, throw back to one of my original slides, which is there are no experts. We have to find talent inwards. There are people who are still learning and growing. It's up to us as leaders to find people within our organization who are entrepreneurial. There are people you already know. When I tell you this, some names are already coming up to your mind saying, wow, this person's really great at this. That person's really smart. This person goes above and beyond. When I ask them this question, they come back with the answer and a proposal for the future. Find those people and give them the opportunity to experiment. Give them the room to fail. And not every project is going to be a success, right? We already know this. When we try a bunch of new things, we know that some of them will fail, some of them will succeed. As leaders, it's our job to think of it as a portfolio. Think of it as you're making multiple investments, and even if one or two of them succeed, you've hit the jackpot because that's going to change the way you do business. I'm calling them internal champions. So go back to your different teams, find the smartest people, find the most motivated people, and assemble them into a ragtag team of events. As you can see from my AI-generated image, we have a bunch of different people working on these cool projects. Of course, AI doesn't look so fancy. In fact, all of us are just sitting in front of our computers with black screens and green text on them. It's not as sexy. But I just wanted to illustrate my point, which is find people who are motivated, find people who want to be at the cutting edge, and say, look, here's my problem. Here's the solution I want to drive. You go and build the most optimal solution for me, and we'll see how well it works out. So room to experiment, room to fail. I think that's extremely important for all of us to give that leeway for our people to try and fail. And of course, as leaders, we must also pivot quickly. When you see that a project is going on for a long time and there's no success, it's either time to stop that project, move that person off and move them to a new project, or just bring in new talent and say, hey, you did your best, hand it over to somebody else who's also excited to work on this problem, and you go focus on a new problem. Sometimes I'm sure it happens to all of us, where we're focused on one problem, and then we get so into the weeds that we forget what the real reason was for us to solve this problem. And then you're out for a run or in a shower, and you're like, wow, I could have solved it this way. So cycle your people through, give them the opportunity to try and fail, and ultimately find your internal champions who will take on these tasks. Another amazing AI-generated image for you. My background is in data science and analytics. I was one of the first generation of people who had access to a computer to do data science. Many of my predecessors had to do it by hand, and props to them. I really don't know the real equation for logistic regression, but I don't need to, because Python will do the work for me, right? So we have already gone through that evolution, and all of us have survived. We're here. Today, we're in this middle hybrid approach. A lot of us are already using AI solutions to improve our efficiency. We're using it to supercharge all of our work. And in the future, AI is inevitably going to take on more and more use cases. So I want us to frame this as an evolution and not a replacement. There are many tech leaders out there who are like, I'm going to replace all of my staff with AI. In my opinion, it's a mistake. What I think about AI is as a partner, almost like an assistant who can supercharge your work. What I expect from my team is not a smaller team, but the same team that's doing 3 or 4 times the work it used to do, because it can now supercharge a bunch of their things, a bunch of their work streams. We can iterate quicker, we can deliver faster, and we can learn from our mistakes faster, right? I'll give you an example. A year ago, I told somebody in my team saying, hey, build me a dashboard. We use a tool called Looker. I said, build me this huge dashboard that tracks every metric in our company, every single metric at every single point. And my plan was to just download a PDF of that report, put it into ChatGPT and say, tell me what's changed. Just give me the highlights. So I can take it to the execs and say, hey, here's what's changed in the business from last week to this week. That was a year ago. Today, I don't even need to do that anymore. I can just plug it into my data source, and it'll do it for me automatically. This technology is evolving so rapidly at a scale or pace that we have not seen so far in human history. It's hard for me or anybody anywhere to fully understand which direction it's going in. It's up to us to tag along and keep innovating alongside it, so we keep improving not only our internal efficiency, but also how we show up to for our customers and help our customer experience. All right. Summing it all up. 3 simple I's: identify, implement, iterate. Not rocket science, but that's the thing that worked for us, and I'm just telling you my story. The way I'm thinking about it is AI is a force multiplier and not a replacement, right? You want to have your same staff be AI native. You must have heard the term, right? AI native. What that just means is you feel comfortable using AI to improve, of course, your own personal efficiency and your work efficiency, but also, how do you think about customer experiences that are powered by AI, which were previously not possible? I don't think of it as a replacement. We still need our human staff to focus on creativity, empathy, and strategy. You must have already noticed that it produces rather weird images, right? You saw the images that I had there. It's not the best. If I'd asked a human designer and said, hey, I'm giving you 2 days, create an image for me, it would probably be much higher quality. So we still want humans to focus on those things and delegate all the repetitive, boring tasks to AI, because that's what it's there for. It has no feelings. You just pay for it, and it does the work for you. It's incredible. Start small, build smart. Pick a use case and go at it, and iterate from there. Like I said, it's hard for us to go big, which is the opposite of this, because we don't know what's going to succeed. Just pick a use case and start experimenting, and eventually you will find something that makes sense. Be open to pivoting, be open to accepting failure and say, hey, okay, this is not a great use case for AI, I'm just going to move on. And the organizations that are most agile and willing to pivot quickly are the ones that are going to succeed. Your primary metric is your compass. Like I said, for us, donation value is our primary metric. just think back to all of your workspaces. There must be a primary metric that drives your company's value. There are multiple different metrics you care about, but ultimately they all ladder up to that one metric. Think about that, and that's your North Star, or the lighthouse you want to keep looking at, and always focus your efforts, including AI efforts, to maximize that metric. Last but not least, your internal champions are the ones who will drive sustainable change. There are no real experts. Find your smartest and most motivated people and give them the room to work on it, to fail, and eventually succeed. I'm Anurag. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'll do questions later, but here's my LinkedIn. Thank you all so much for listening.